biblical holiday year or calendar year in Hebrew roots as the Hebrew calendar or the biblical cyclical time. And the holidays biblical, if we could be called. And this is going to be a preparation for the time coming and the end of the biblical time calendar or cycle, and on preparation to the new time, the new cycle coming. And we'll be looking for something in the middle of March for the Rosh Hashanah, and around 14 to 15 of this Gregorian calendar on March the 14, 15, depending, maybe 16 on of the Rosh Chodesh, the new moon sighting. And that's why one of the look-ins in there, one of the principle on the biblical calendar time in measurement is given by the eternal is the moon, the first sight of the moon as being set some ancient time. So this is gonna be that. And of course we have to remember the reason why we are having a biblical time of observance instead of the secular time of observance. A new biblical time, a new year, if we could be say so, to or versus what is a secular observance of the new year, which is in the middle of the winter where nothing happens, against what is the biblical calendar, the biblical new year, which is when is the receiving the spring, when it's Aviv and we can harvesting, having more fruits coming to your table and to the service to the Father, and for every single thing be talking into the people, and the time of Israel observance for the service to the Father. So of course, watching over what it could be the beginning of the feast of the Father, would it be in Leviticus 33 written down, is coming to him in observance what it would be the reason why we have to come to this. Why we're coming to the feast of the eternal, what point in times is and not following the secular calendars. One of the first things that we have to take into account is that the foundation of the congregation was based down by Yeshua 2,000 years ago. Then the Shilachim descended the apostles and the prophets. So we, as the come of the last and the times, the end of the times, we're coming to be the last stones in this temple that he has lifted up. Of course, he's also a shadow of what Moses. So when the Eternal showed him, you will build up my tabernacle as is showing to you. But the last coverture into that Mishkan was a kaporot, built by also, like in this one that we have in today in Yeshua, would be the last kaporot will be Yeshua for redemption to everyone. So in the time of the exit of the Egypt, the Mishkan and the first thing that they built up, it was orders to build up in the first year. And if you go to the Exodus 40:17, and so in the first month of the second year, on the first day of the month, the tent was set up. And then how long does it take us to leave Egypt and leave the dwelling for the service to the Father? For some of us, it's going to take 6 months. For some of others, it's going to take a bit longer. But the appointed and the purpose for the Father giving that to Moses is, from now on, the service is going to be to me from now on. And so it specifically says that in the first month of the second year, on the first day of the month, the tent was set up, which is means in other words that your service is going to be completely to me. You want to have times to do secular things in the world. We have times to do our own purposes. To what purpose we start the year. The purpose in the service of the Father according to what's scriptural, according to what he said, or against what the other people have said through man-made commandments. Talking about what religious, and even it can be connected to what we spoke a little bit in the last time with the secular calendar from Julian calendar given by Pope that has nothing to be with Bible, that has nothing to be with scriptural, celebrating pagan days according to the man-made commandments, Christmas, end of the year, nothing biblical, just merely inventions and fables from people, and of course more than Babylonian, idolatry involved into all of this. But the real context that we have to come to us to close to Bible, to come to biblical cyclical year, Hebrew calendar, is of observing what the Father has specified for time measurements. And we have to come to see from days, from hours, even sometimes from days, months, years, 50 years, even though. So here the Eternal is giving to Moses this day is going to be from the first day of the month, the 10th was lifted up. So for the purpose of serving the Father, it was lifted up. We have the whole year to serve Him, not just specific days. We have the whole year, but specified on the first day, you're going to build up, and then it keeps going in Leviticus 23, in which days we're going to be congregated to Him, to consecrate ourselves, to honor Him, of course, to be light to the nations. So one of the purposes of the people of Israel and Abraham's offspring, of course, was that, to be light to the nations. So they're going to be all Mishkan, and then He will be dwelling among them as Yeshua lifted up, and He is dwelling among us through the nations, and He is giving light to the nations through us, through Yeshua. So that holy presence that was sitting down in the Mishkan, he has a function that needed all the people, right, for sanctification, for the Levites and so on. So all the people have to fulfill a function inside the Mishkan to give a service to the Eternal, and that make the Mishkan functionable. But when the people of Israel came out of stopped doing the service to their Father, was the Mishkan useless, or was the people not doing their task, their service according to the Eternal it should be? Of course, it was not the Mishkan, it was useless. It was the people who were not doing their service according to what the scriptural has to be. So the temple that Yeshua brought down to fulfill this purpose, or the people work properly to the Father, to make real service to the Father, spirit and truth, all the time, all the year, on designated times as He has specified. Regardless, on that time it was a temple, now it's everywhere we go because we're the real temple of it. We're gonna some verses coming further to see what I'm talking about. So that temple that it was brought down by Yeshua, destroyed this temple, I will rebuild one in 3 days. So that temple, if it did a purpose to the people of Israel as well. Again, did that temple make the purpose or not? The temple make this purpose. Did the people was making its service? Of course, people were not doing their service. Again, one more time, people ratherly went or go again to idolatry, again to forgiving what the real service, as the Father has designated to His people to be holy, to be the light of the nations, and then keep walking away. By the time the Yeshua came and bring it up, and what is prophetically said as the David's tent, the real sanctuary, to come close to the presence again. The real Liberator as a shadow of Moshe, the great priest, a shadow of Aaron, and the real Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting, was raised from 2,000 years ago. So the service is still going, not until today, and it's never been abolished. He never came to abolish any of those commandments. The times and signals is still showing until today. The biblical evidence that we can see day by day, year to year, is going and showing as the words of Yeshua has announced it. So we have to increase the same thing, the service, year after year. The word of the Father is always calling us, but we have to come close to Him, to serving Him, consecrate ourselves, to be holy as holy am I, He said. That fulfill his purpose on us in our lives, not we making our own purposes. Not our own purposes. It's making and making his purposes in our lives. All right, so we have today the Feast of the Eternal, Leviticus 23. I say we have a sub-concept to see here. First of all, we're going to see secular calendars, sun moon observance, and cultural context in other religions and other maybe secular calendars overall, in general. Second of all, we're going to be some biblical calendar and appointment times. Biblical calendar appointed times, what it would be inside of the Israel time and what it looks for us and as holiness and obedience. It's a shadow for us of every single thing that we see on Torah that we have to leave, we have to obey, we have to keep because it's still on covenant. It's still on covenant. It's the same thing that we have to do. We're part of that holy people. We are the holy people of the eternal. It's called Israel is called today the body of Mashiach, the body of the Messiah. Okay, and moving on to we're gonna have the holy convocations or the appointed times, which brings us hope, which is the truths written down in the scripture of the Father, and it's a way we have to follow because our shadows of things to come. And it's life. He brings us blessings. It's life. It brings us. He brings us blessings. He brings us hope, truth. He brings us the life of the Mashiach in our lives, so we can walk in according to the delightful of the eternal. All right. So far we have examined the biblical faith given to the Israel, which is a natural olive tree, and compared to the oral tradition. The instruction received since the beginning has been attacked by Satan, the serpent. The last 2 millennia had been no exception. The faith of faithful Israel has recognized the anointed one of the eternal has been attacked by 2 religious entities. First, by the Judaizing or Judaizers movements that impose the ritual tradition for salvation. On the other hand, the Roman Babylonian paganism that contaminated the purity of the gospel, in quotes. This is the redemption or rescue previously announced to the offspring of Abraham and to the calls of the Gentiles. It's called and is written down. We're gonna see that on every single one of the times appointed. So during the 2nd century, the so-called parents of the church began to finish what would later become the theological basis of Christian church, of the Christendom, in other words, where Greek philosophers replaced the Hebrew teaching or the biblical teaching with the Rome anew replaces Jerusalem. The Gentiles with the Hebrews or Sunday, the Shabbat, with the Sunday, in holy quotations for pagan feast, etc. So what happened is example with the Christmas. It's a pagan feast. It's not written down in Hebrew, not written down in the Bible, but it says it's some kind of a gathering for Christians, and that's when you can see what that is a theological idea of something that is being paganized. So very soon, a universal system of pagan and religious beliefs gave way to the Catholic Church. What is Catholic Church? And then go on with the other after the reforms or deform of the churches. And it comes the millennial and the thousands of denominations on the churchianity. So Augustine, in his book, The City of God, developed the idea that the Church of Israel will be blessed by the Messiah's return and reign on earth. But the church replaces Israel forever. Rome is now the center of worship, or the church, in other words, for today's words, is being replaced for the old Israel, or the old covenant, with the new covenant, where they have no laws. They are lawlessness, which the new covenant brings. I'll put my commandments into your heart. Anyway, the New Jerusalem, Judaism, is an imperfect religion and replaced by the gospel. the whole foundation was replaced by Greek knowledge. So of course, all that syncretism, the cultural syncretism that happens about 325 with the Council of Nicaea, we know that that was prophesied by Daniel chapter 9, if I'm not wrong. I'm sorry, but then we know and understand where that come from. And even Saul said that the mystery of iniquity is already in function. Iniquity. What a beautiful word. So the Council of Nicaea, adopted this theologic of Greek focus, and in the 16 and for 1600 years it was used as persecute not only Jews but who believers in Messiah with the Hebrew teaching or the Hebrew understanding or the biblical plenitude of the scriptural keeping obedience. So produce hatred and seal are obstacles that had been dismissed for them to know the Messiah, and the church is responsible for all this work. And he shall say, raise up, clear the way, make a stumbling block and rise for the way for my people. Isaiah 57:14. So the replacement theology says that Israel is imperfect and has no promises, and it has been replaced by the church. That's called the replacement theology. In other words, we all know, mostly of us know that. For some of you that didn't knew this, let me say there's a lot of misunderstanding inside of the churches where they're taking all theology seminars and taking all the old covenant away, forgetting what's the promise of the new covenant, not just for Israel, but also for the nations who comes to be obedient unto the Father. So the church is the spiritual Israel, the perfect one, which is all the blessings and promises. They want all things perfect, but they don't want to be obedient to the Father, or just what they serves for them. And Israel is cursed and marginalized before God. That's on their words. So maybe a first time for normal people to observe, understand all of these things, but we're gonna see a little bit more of this secular understanding, and each empire imposed its own annual system of activities, of course, in ancient times, and we're talking about even from Rome or before. Every single time they have imposed, every time they expand the imperialism or their territory to celebrate their own appointed times or their cultural behavior unto where their religiously imposed. So every empire imposed its own manual system of activities, a guide to worship the gods, and their gods, in other words. And but most of them, they were determined by the sun equinoxes. So we know the Sumerians were the first ones to determine astronomical basis, and were transmitted from culture to culture. Even some Mesoamericans here in Latin America, North America, they have the same sun system to follow the measuring of times along with the moon. So it was a solid lunar calendar. But according to that, also they add to that a little bit of religious events and a near cycle of every single annual cycle for the sun or the moon. So every astronomical basis was transmitted, like I said, and it was a base education system for every single empire. So the worship of the gods, from the deities that we already know, it's still existing until today, like the sun worship, in other words, in the Sunday. And so yeah, the four solstices are this annual cyclical, and we're going to talk about a little bit. We talk about that already, but we're going to remember this figure. The sun in the center is a famous cross, the ideologic cross. It was introduced by 4th century, And the believers still didn't know anything about this, but Constantine introduced this in the 4th century as a worship of the mythical cult to the Sol Invictus. He established the worship week and the worship week based on a Dominus Day, for example, as in ancient culture in the case of the Romans. We're gonna see some more further. So, in Oriental culture, the secular calendar we have here, so the traditional Chinese calendar, officially known as the agricultural calendar, and take a look, it was agriculture based. Nongli, farming calendar, or former calendar, is a Yuili. Traditional calendar, they have the Laoili, or the Jin calendar, the Jinli. Jin calendar is a lunisolar calendar which renounces year, months, and days according to astronomical phenomena. So take a look that they have the astronomical phenomena based onto them, so they can work into the agricultural days. Days begin with the end at the end. Days begin and end at midnight. At midnight. And months begin in the day of the new moon. Years begin in the second or third new moon after winter solstice. Winter solstice, that's close to February, January. We're moving on. Take a look, they based pretty much on sun. That's for Chinese. Look after Egyptian secular calendar. A civil calendar was a solar calendar. The way it's a solar calendar with 365-day year. The year was consisted of 3 seasons, 120 each. 3 seasons, 120. Remember, the Egyptian didn't have that much seasonal as the other after the tropical of the Capricornal tropic. They're more equatorial, so they have a whole year good time. So it was more based on the sun. Same thing that here in Mesoamericans and Latin Americans, we're going to see that later too. Plus an intercalary month of 5 heptagonal days treated as outside of the year properly said. Each season was divided into 4 months of 30 days. These 12 months were initially numbered with each season, but came also to be known by the names of their principal festivals. So of course, again, the festivals, again, whether the purpose means every single thing they received, and we understand and we know that the Egyptian culture, every single thing that they have done, it was based and followed by worshiping their gods, right? So each month was divided into 10-day periods known as the decans or decades, and it has been suggested that during the 19th dynasty and the 20th dynasty, the day last 2 days on each decan were usually treated as kind of weekend for the royal craftsmen, with royal artisans and free from work, kind of a big holiday. Moving on. Babylonian calendar. Of course, the Babylonian calendar. It was a lunisolar calendar at both, with years consisting of 12 lunar months. 12 lunar months. And we have to remember how they were really focused into astronomical phenomena, deities, stars, and all of this. So each one of these months was beginning with a new crescent moon, was first sighted low in the western horizon at sunset, plus an intercalary month increase and needed by decree. The calendar is based on Sumerian 3rd dynasty of Ur, predecessor perversing to the Yuma calendar of Shuli in the 21st century BC, before Mashiach. During the 6th century of the Babylonian captivity, the Hebrews say in there, instead of saying the Israelites, They were all Israelites already because they were the pact with Israel. Israel call it. They never call it biblical after Israel. No one were Hebrew. Well, anyway, the Babylonian month name were adopted into the Hebrew calendar. The time that Israel were observed, it was adapted by these people that it was took down by to the exile. So with the Syrian calendar used in Iraq and Lebanon, that also used many of the same names on its months, such as Layar, Tammuz, Ab, Elul, Tishri, Adar. Oh my goodness, they got a simulation in there. Finally, the Turkish incorporated some of, but not all, these Assyrian month names as part of their own calendar. Just as something, just as one of the examples that they brought when they came back from the exile. On Persian secular calendar, the earliest evidence of Iranian calendar traditions from the secular millennium BC, second millennial BC, as possibly even predates the preeminence of the Iranian prophet Zoroaster. Why I brought this here? This is very important to understand that from Babylonian, along with the Persians, they have a syncretism of all of this. First, fully preserved calendar is by the Achaemenids and a royal dynasty of the 5th century, before Mashiach, who gave rise to Zoroastrianism. 5th century before Mashiach. Through recorded history, Persians has been keen on the idea of importance of having a calendar, something as the Babylonian calendars. They were among the first cultures to use the solar calendar and have a long favored solar over lunar or lunisolar. They have both, but they prefer the sun. The sun has always been a religious and divine symbol in Iranian culture. And the origin of folklore regarding Cyrus the Great. It's a long encyclopedia over all the network where you can find out about Cyrus the Great information from every single history research that you can get in there. Even though Jews don't like it, because you might find something that they don't like about Cyrus, that some people came back and anyway. The first calendar based in Zoroastrian cosmology appeared in the later Achaemenid period, 650 to 330 before Mashiach. They evolved over the centuries, but month names change little until now. How much did they change? And why put them sold in big today over there? Why the Persian came to be something more like Greek calendar? Well, after the Greek calendar, we have to look at a little bit before that too. Get some influence also from the Greek calendar to establish the way we have to put on and why we haven't. So from Greece, following Alexander's conquest in Persia, 330 BC, the Seleucids, 312 to 234 before Mashiach, instituted the Hellenic practice of counting the years from the start of a fixed era. As opposed to using a regnal years, the regnal era of Alexander is now referred to as the Seleucid era. The Parthians in 150 to 224, and in Christ's era of Mashiach, who succeed the Seleucids, continue the Seleucid Hellenic tradition. So this still reigned like that. So independent of the division of money to days, it was divided into periods according to the increase or decrease of the moon. Take a look at this. Each of the city-states in ancient Greece had their own calendar. Each city-state in ancient Greece had their own calendar. That was based on the cycle of the moon, but also the various religious festivals that occurred through the year. The Greeks considered each day of the month to be attributed to a different entity, God, Deus, Deus. They call it in Latin Deus, the Latin Deus, the Dios. Just such the seventh day on each month was dedicated to Apollo, his birthday, they said. The month in which the year began, as well the names of the months differ from among the states, and in some parts not even names existed, and it were distinguished by numerically, same thing as the Hebrew calendar. It has no names. It's just numbers. From the only one who has name actually is Aviv, the first one, which he means something. So the year was meant to begin with the first sighting of the moon after the summer solstice, close to November, something like. Ideally, the solstice would occur, October, sorry, occur toward the end of the Sciroporian, the final month of the year, something like that. So the first day first is the new moon, Nomania. Day 2 is August, or Daimon. Day 3 to Athena, 4 Heracles, 6 Artemis, 7 Apollos, 8 Poseidon, or Theseus. These have more to see. I wanted to take a little peek into what these people there with the secular calendars, which is your Deus or Zeus in Greek, no Latin, but in Latin comes to be dies, as common in regular Greek, the word of Zeus. It developed because Zeus is a highly irregular noun which is declined as a Zeus in the nominative Dios, okay? In the gentile die, or in the dative dia, in the accusative of Zu, and the vocative. The famous temple of Olympian Zeus that we saw before in Athens was called in ancient form, or the Mother Greek, Naus tu Olympiu Deus. Naus tuo Olympiu Deus. Okay? Temple of our Dios Olimpo. Anyways, so I took 3 regions from the Greeks to take a look of these Dios or Deus or gods, and from Argolian region, take a look at where their gods are attributed to, and every single one of those months or days, I think there are months, are attributed to a different god. Hermaios, Aios, Ardios, Gamios. Take a look. Panamos, Teleos, Cameos, and Corinthians, Carneos, see, Gamaliels, Panamios, Pelaios, Aetolian, Dios, Homolios, Hermaios, Dionysios. Anyway, pretty interesting. Anyway, they got conquered by the Romans, as we know on prophecy too. And Plutarch's parallel lives record that the Romulus calendar had been solar, but adhered to the general principle that the year should last for 360 days. Months were employed secondarily and emphasizedly, with some counted on 20 days and others at 35 or more. The 7-day week began to be observed in Italy in the early imperial period as practitioners and converts to the Eastern religions introducing Hellenistic and Babylonian astrology, both together. The system was originally used for private worship and astrology, but had replaced the nundinal week by the time of Constantine made Sunday Dies Solis, God, Sun, Sun God. That's why I want to emphasize on the time of the Greeks with this Latin and the influence from the Persians, and now being like this. It's just the syncretism between both cultural influences into what Roman came to absorb from almost all the Mediterranean. So an official day of rest with AD was at 325, 321 before. So what we have in Latin as a March, Marches, April, Aprilis, Aphrodita, Aphrodite, sorry, May, Mayus as a Maya, June as a Juno, right? And from July, Quintilis, which is 5th, August, Sextilis, which is 6th, September, of course, 7, October, Octo, 8, November, 9th month, and this December, the 10th month. If we have something differently today, I mean, if you're looking for that 12th month in the month of December, you're being lied. I'm sorry, but you're being deceived. You're living a lie in your reality. Okay, so more from Romans, proposed by Julius Caesar in 708 before Mashiach, was a reform of the Roman calendar. It took effect on January 1st of 709 before Mashiach, 45 Mashiach, by edict of designed with the aid of the Greek mathematicians and Greek astronomers and sojourners and Alexandria. What else do you want? The month of July was previously called Quintilis, Latin in the 5th month, and then the ancient Roman calendar. So the name of the month was changed to July in honor of Julius Caesar during the calendar reform. It was decided to establish a calendar that would be convenient between the Roman months, the fixed length of the Egyptian calendar, and the 365 and a quarter days of the Greek astronomy. Because of course Greek astronomy have a lot in common with the Babylonian astronomy as well. So Julius Caesar was introduced in the 45 BC, and he was assisted by Cleopatra's astronomers when they conquered Egypt, and they created a 12-month calendar, and yeah, it was actually adopted through the whole Roman Empire. And so by the time that the Yeshua came, it was already in system, and it was only a little bit changed by the 300 and something with Constantine on the day of the Solstice Invictus. So by 713 before Mashiach, King Numa Pompilius added the January and February to create. Look how long this is nothing new. 713 before Mashiach added January and February to create a 12-month year. He did not change the names of the last 6 months, and their numbers are misleading still till today. Awesome. So why we haven't now the church councils in here? The Gregorian calendar was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1572, 1585, after whom it's named the Gregorian calendar, in order to keep the spring of equinox in a similar time of the year to Easter. It's not Pesach, it's not Passover, it's Easter. So it was therefore associated with the Roman Catholicism. Roman Catholicism prays wide open all this syncretism, and they try to kill all what is called pagan into what their theology understanding could be, and it could be established by the church even after, from the time of Constantine until pretty much the 1700s. So the Anno Domini AD Nostri Gesù Christi, Anno Domini Nostri Gesù Christi. It's in Italian, which translates in the year of our Lord Jesus Christ. So it was established by Dionysius Exiguus, something that we mentioned before, in the 6th century, a monk who invented the term AD in the 525, Anno Domini, in the year of the Lord, our Lord Jesus Christ. And he based the numbering system on the birth of the Christ, not his death on the age of 33. Therefore, AD does not stand for after death. Something to just clarify there. And this is a detail of the Pope's stamp, Camillo Rusconi, which is completed in 1723 in honor, of course, of what Gregory Mr. Gregory did in the calendar for all people to be deceived and to follow the lies that they follow. Antonio Lilo is Jennifer Franklin before the Pope presenting his printed calendar. So right down there is he is presenting the calendar to the Pope, and everybody is saying Feliz Año Nuevo. Maya and Azteca, they are Mesoamerican, especially this part of the this part of the water. The calendar consists of 365-day calendar cycle. So you can see this is based on sun. Kalek Ixupo Wali, sorry for the mispronunciation, or is a year count in a 260-day ritual cycle. Ritual cycle, so all based on a ritual to the sun, called Tutanotpotli or day count. There were two cycles together from 52 years century. So it was, if you can see the calendars, it was three different calendars in there. It was a yearly, it was a year century, and then it was a calendar around, or Xilopoali is considered to be agricultural calendar since it's based on the sun, and Tonapoali is considered to be sacred calendar, religious in other ways. See? So, and the Andes of pre-Columbian, I want to remark this one, people don't know this much, but the Andes has a wide, really big transcendence of what they did in there into mysticism. Based on astronomical observations, of course, they were based into the stars, and they were based into the moon, and they were based into the sun, especially into the sun from Incas. The first basic feature to the calendar is sacred day count, totaling of 260 days. This sacred calendar correlated with the rituals of the gods. It has many names among the civilizations in South America, including the Totanapuadli, or in Nahuatl, and it's not in Yucatec. The days are counted by 20, by 13 currently. The separate counts refer by the Veintiena on the Tricena, respectively, to 60 days, etc. Anyways, this was used to determine agricultural patterns and seasons, because in the Andes, from pretty much a little bit down Mexico, what we could say maybe El Salvador and Nicaragua, until all the way down to Bolivia, part of Chile, part of Argentina, still have the Equatorian weather, so they don't see too much of the seasonal changes again. So they have to establish, according to the sun and equinoxes, what it would be the best time for harvesting and or worshiping their gods. So here the year is divided into 18 months, comparatively 20 days each, which a final month of 5 faithful days. Interesting. Of course, I forgot about the Shakana lunar calendar and to the Andes, which is a solar, and we mentioned it before. And up at top, you see the cross, which is in the sun, and the calendar moons counting for the months. And of course, we have the Muslim, was the closest to the biblical calendar set, you know, because there was a syncretism from the Roman civilization. So that's Islamic calendar, a Muslim calendar, Hijri calendar, called in other words, or as Adat Qakim al-Khalid from Persian, or Qarim Hijri Qamari, is a lunar calendar used to date events in many predominantly Muslim countries, made by Muslims everywhere to determine the proper day in which to celebrate Islamic holidays and festivals. And of course, it's just lunar calendar. It's not sun at all. Having 12 lunar months is yearly about 354 days. The secular Muslim calendar. So more or less, you can see that every single calendar has a background where it has a cultural influence by way they can see into the emotions, into the heavens above, or what they can see into the seasons, right? And of course, and the neglecting and understanding what we can see and understand what the eternal give to the people on the let me take some notes from here. The people neglected to start to seeing the obedience to the Father. That's what happens. They start looking to different things and attributing these things to their gods, right? So if we start walking away what Scripture is given to us, we're not gonna get this. Speak to the entire congregation of children of Israel and tell them you will be holy as holy am I, the eternal your mighty. Leviticus 19:2. I want to take that as a beginning of where we coming to be. We're called to be holy. We're calling for holiness. In order to be holy as a Peter read down this, be holy because holy he's holy as is written, and of course everything is just based and focused on what the Torah was wrote down. So one of the first things that we have to focus and became holy is leave the idolatry away, to clean out all kind of idolatry. Hmm? So understanding that the Eternal created a calendar and show it to the creation, show it how the mystery of the centuries, the ages, in ancient times, and the mystery and the stars, from the field of the Adam's seed, it was populated with wisdom that was created even by. That's why the judgment of the fall came. Then that wisdom became perverted again after the flood. And as soon as man allowed himself to be seduced, the powers of the heavens were revealed to him, and the end serving an abominable cult. When the Eternal created everything, he designated superior beings to each element of the universe. These endowed with power were divine figures in the eyes of corrupted men. One of those beings from the beginning of the corruption, it was related to the sun, right? Hence the cult of the sun was born from every ancient time, and that persists until today, like I said earlier, with the Sumerians, the first civilization who developed this, and they were the owners who established the knowledge of astronomy and astrology. There's a very deep understanding of that, and they also began the cults with the stars, the Egyptian peoples as well, the Canaanites, no doubt about it. So until today, is still the same kind of a cult. And they, of course, established their calendar. They started according to the stars, specifically the sun. And well, this is very interesting to see how the scripture, how the Eternal took these people out of that influence, and today he also does the same thing with us. He does the same thing with us. We're calling away of that idolatry. He's choosing people for his purpose. He's calling us away to the desert, taking us out of Egypt to serve him in the desert. And one of the figures that is in the desert, biblically speaking, is so that way I will be talking to you. Something happened to Moses, something happened to Mashiach. In that way, he can understand everything that he might want it into his purposes, into obedience, in praying and fasting just to him. Hmm? So the same way that he called that people from Israel in that time today, he's calling us today. Hmm? To serve, to leave the service of it, to leave the worship as a Gentile, and to come to the service of the Father. Worship is different as a service. I explained before that the worship is not a biblical word. It's not part of the faith. Worship is a pagan word. Every single reading down on Torah till the prophets, even into the Psalms, Proverbs is service to the Father. You're gonna come to serve me. So every single one from the nation that been brought out of and abandoned to abandon that strange cult to serve the Almighty. See, even those at Deuteronomy, very interesting. I can't remember the verse right now. It's a very interesting to see what Torah is giving instructions for to Moses and to the people, where it says forbidding any kind of idolatry. And it's the same kind of a thing when it starts in Acts 15 with the council of the Sheliachim, the apostles. The first one is gonna be forbidden all kind of idolatry. So the same thing happens in Deuteronomy, and it says, "They call you in the middle of the midst. Do you not saw any figure of a quadruped animal or a fish in the sea?" And left, and then do not be or any likeness of a man or woman. And sorry for paraphrasing this word. Do not be that your eyes lift them to heaven and see the sun, the moon, the stars, and the army of the heavens, and be into impelled to bow down to them and serve them, because the eternal is being given that to the peoples under the heavens. To peoples under the heavens is meaning by the Gentiles. So it's a very deep to understand that, since what the eternal make that with Abraham is to call him with a pact, to me a pact with his descendants. He was fulfilling with Abraham's descendants, making to separate people very different apart, and where we have away with the idols that establish away strange cults, and it's just set apart a group of people with Abraham, what is called later on Israel, and make a pact with them to be holy people, so you can be the light for the nations. So there you go. When you come out and to being gentle, to say, you know what, I don't want to worship the stars, the sun, the moon, or the sky, any object, any animal of the creation, birds, nothing, not image have you seen. So yes, to come to see the commandments given to Moses according to the festivals, or simply to know what they are. So the holy appointments of the Father. All right. And what we see in the scripture, then we finally have a biblical year beginning to the end, and it has a days and has a creator to set us apart, or especially appointments, or set it apart days, choosing days with the figure purposes, with the shadows, with hopes. We're going to see prophetically evidence that is going to be for us, and purposes, also spiritual purposes that are taken for us. So when we're talking about faith, when we're talking about Bible, when we are finding out more about biblical faith, uh, the first thing that we're going to go under is, are their commandments still valid for us today? What are they doing to us? Where these commandments are going to helping us to do that? If this appointed time means something for the people of Israel, and it means something for us today, right? Words and questions that comes to our mind when we have to understanding biblical scripture, not theological arguments against festivals and mandates. Which ones would you do? Which ones you don't do? Or we're gonna go to the pagan festivities. So be holy, because holy am I is the ones I want to start with, is the one that we should focus in every single time. So festivals or appointed times, which is Genesis 1:14. Then Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the expansion of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and serve as signals for the seasons." Signals for the seasons. Now, for days and years. So the word in there for seasons is moed. Moed in Hebrew. Hmm? It's written down in there. Also in Chronicles 8:13, Hebrew 32:59, sorry, 32:59, and it says that it means appointment, designation, fixed time, season, specifically festival. And why I'm pointing this to here? So an appointed time is important to the people for biblical faith. It was important for the people of Israel to understand what's an appointment time. If you go to Matthew 13:3, I took the Tree of Life version, and we're gonna see something that Yeshua said about the time of servants. In the morning, it's stormy weather today, for the sky is red and gloomy. You know how to discern the appearance of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. It could be due to two things: the signs of the times who are coming, or the appointed times that it need to be have. They have a prophetical time. And the time that Yeshua came for Israel, it was a prophetically time spoken into the prophets, spoken into Torah, give it to the Moses so they can understand the shadows of things to come, as Paul says. An evil and adulterous generation seeks a sign for signals and seasons, but no sign will be given except the sign of Jonah. So he left them and departed. Further on in Luke 19:44 from the King James Version 21 said, and they shall lay thee even with the ground, and the children within thee, and they shall not leave the tree one stone upon another, because you knewest not the time of your visitation, because you didn't know your time of your visitation, because they didn't knew when Yeshua was come through the redeemed, when Israel come to be redeemed, when Shiloh came to the embodied one, Shiloh, and approached Jerusalem and saw the city, and he wept over and he said, if you even know today, if you had only known on this day what would bring you shalom. The same shalom it was prophesied in the prophets that we're going to give to the people of Israel. Is given to the nations through Yeshua. But now it's hidden from your eyes. And it was a prophetic event that happened into the people of Israel to understanding that that appointed time, that season time, the signal given into that time through Yeshua, it was a shadow from the real Mashiach. And it is given down into the festival citations. It's a citation. It's a specific time appointed to understand and the prophetical things to come. All right. The next word I want to analyze will be Colossians 2:16. Let no one then you judge in eating or drinking. Have you ever heard this verse? Or in respected to a feast. Hey, Paul is talking about a feast. Or in a new moon. People are talking about a new moon. Or the Shabbats. Talking about Shabbats. Not even Shabbat, but Shabbats, plural. Which are a shadow of the common things. Which are a shadow of the common things. He didn't say we're a shadow of the things that were done. Of the common things. And the body is the Messiah. Or the reality is the Messiah. Every single thing that we have in this existence, in this universe, is a shadow of things to come. Same thing where we're related to Moses, of the things to come in the Mishkan, and the tabernacle. The real one that has lived out by the Messiah is this one today. The same things that we still have on hope to see were given to Moses, and were given in us also by following that shadow. So and of course they're all placed down on Leviticus 23. So this word is mikra, convocation. Convocation. The one that I want to understand today, mikra, is convocation. So I want to go a little bit with the Romans that they use a lot, that they use a lot to not being judged on these things, taking that text out of context and said that you should not be judged by doing these things. See that Paul is giving you they should not be judged if you do so, not if you don't do. The words for those who obey it, not just to listen. So in Romans 14:19 to 23, they're gonna be a little verse in there. They also is talking about for the weak on faith. So therefore, let's keep on pursuing those things that bring peace, shalom, the shalom that Mashiach left, obedience, and that led us to build up one another, not destroy Eternal's creation, the Eternal's action, the Eternal's work for problems of food. Everything is clean. Of course, if it's right down by scripture, not because you said so, but scripture was telling you what's clean, everything is good. But it's wrong to make another person stumble because of what you eat. The right thing to do is to avoid eating meat, drinking wine, or anything else that makes your brother stumble. Of course, you can hold on yourself to try to, like you said in the beginning, to lead to building up one another. To lead, not to just stay as filthy as you are. As for the faith that you have it is as your own conviction before the Eternal. Before the Eternal, you have a conviction. And it's the conviction that He gives to you, not the one that you create by yourself to Him. He established a way where you have to communicate with you. So you have come back to Him. Know that you establish the way you go to Him, because that's wrong. That's called religious. Same thing that the Judaism does, they establish their own laws to come to the Father. Same thing that the Christendom does, thinking that they have their own laws from Christ, which are not the laws on the Father, which are holy, said by St. Paul. How blessed is the person who has no reason to condemn himself because of what he approves, but the person who has no doubts and condemns if he eats, because he does not act in faith. Because he does not act in faith. And acting in that is not done in faith. And anything that is not done in faith is sin. Anything that has no conviction is sin. Anything that has no security is sin. Why I'm saying this? Because faith, emunah, is convictions, is security, is establishment on something that you hold on for sure, for granted, that never loses or goes away because you know it for sure. And those are the Torah. Inamovable things. Inamovable things. Heavens and earth will pass, but my words never pass. Just as simple as that. Having that understand that you know, and you need to understand that faith is the conviction of things that you don't see it's come, but you have the conviction on Torah that what's good and what's wrong. If you do what's good, you're okay. It's sin for you to not do the things that you know that are good, and knowing the things that are good is not your thought, is the word of the Father. Yeshua said, your word is truth. Your word is truth. Okay? I want to use another verse here that also is really wrong used as a non-neglecting to meet together. Forgetting, of course, all the context of Hebrews 10. Forgetting all the context that hold the book of Hebrews means, actually. And it's a very twisted, rip it out of the context and religiously used when you have to call something of convocation. Okay, so the people of Israel have convocation times. What happened when the Gentiles come to the Israel? Are we part of the Israel? Are we injected into Israel? We don't do anything else. So it comes to understand a lot of things that we have to get into our faith, into our assurance, into our security, into no doubting of what we're doing, because is the establishment of things that would not move. So there, I want to read it. I'm going to read it and we go on. Therefore, brothers, since that you have confidence to enter the holy places. Take a look at this. The holy places. We can enter to a place which is holy by the blood of Yeshua, by the new and living way that's opened to us through the curtain that is through his flesh, through his word, through his steps. We are being blessed too. And since we have a great priest, so he's talking about first a holy place, second he's talking about a great priest, who is allowing us to come to the Father, to come close to the Father again, because we're on peace with him, with shalom. Why? Because he has forgiven us our sins through the blood of Yeshua, who is a living way that we open it to us through the curtain that is through the flesh. And since we have a great priest, we keep going over the house of the eternal. Let us draw near with a true heart in a full assurance of faith. On obedience, not something again. On obedience and understanding what is correct to do, and not just avoiding what is just not convenience for me to do because I don't know. He's talking here about something of coming close to. Full assurance to come close to. Let us draw near with a true heart in full obedience to the Father, with our hearts spring clean from an evil conscience. See what is needed to understand what faith means. The assurance of something that you know that is granted and is immovable. Something that is safe, no doubt. So with the heart spring clean, with a clean heart of no evil, no sin, no doubt over conscience that we are doing good or wrong, because we know what's good. And our bodies washed up with pure water, the Torah. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering. See, for the who promises is faithful. And let us consider how to strip up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as a habit of some, but encouraging one another, and let all the more, or as you see the day is drawing near. One of the first things that we need to understand in the book of Hebrews is talking about the sacrifices that the high priest needed to do. He says in there we can come close together now with the Father. With the Father. So something that I want to mention too, and let me take my notes here pretty quick, is knowing and understanding what the people establish what is faith and what is not. When they start doing their own understanding of how to come close to the Father, and what is not. I want to bring here, I don't have it maybe, let me see. Okay, I have it here, and it says, when Yeshua spoke to the crowds and to the disciples in Matthew 23, 1-3, sorry, Matthew 23, 1-3, and when Yeshua spoke to the crowds and to his disciples, saying, in the Torah, the scholars and the Pharisees sit on the seat of Moses. So whatever they tell you, do and observe and keep, do and obey, but don't do what they do, for what they say they do not. They do not do. So he is of course saying that he needs to obey what they said, which they are talking about the Torah, the word of the Father. Your word is true. Something of Psalm 118. Take a look to that. Go and take a look at it. Understanding what all those things are. Emphasizing what are those things. And understanding what's the sprinkling of a clean water upon you. I want to go back to Ezekiel 36:25. It's a prophetic time coming into the people of Israel and understanding the times to come, the shadow for the Yeshua, what he has to do in order to the redemption all the peoples of the world, not just a filthy people. They call it themselves holy, they are not. Ezekiel 36:25-27. Then I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean from all your filthiness and from all your idols. No more idolatry, no more weird images, no more weird calls to different gods. A new heart also I will give you, and a new spirit, a new ruach I will put within you, and I will take away that stone heart out of your flesh, and I'll give you a heart of flesh. And I will put you my spirit within you, to cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and to do them. My spirit in you, so you walk in my statutes. Another verse, but this is a covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, is a declaration to Adonai. I'll put my Torah within them, yes. I will write them in their heart, and I will be their God. I will be Elohim, and they will be my people. Jeremiah 31:33. Commandments in our hearts. Did that mean something? It does make some sense? Something happened like that with the prophet and the apostles was said. The ruach, the spirit of the Father coming to the earth, the promises coming to the earth. Then in Acts chapter 10, we're gonna see something that happened, prophetically speaking, that it needs to be fulfilled. And then Yeshua promised to the apostles. Acts chapter 10, 34-35, and Kepha just assures what he appears to see on the blanket coming up and down. And Kepha opening his mouth and said, of truth I perceive that Elohim is not respecter of persons. That Elohim is not he makes no difference of people. He makes no exception of people. But in every nation that one who feared him and work in righteousness is accepted with him. He's not talking about something spiritual that it just moves in your heart and sings beautifully. It seems something that you need to learn, that is confirmed in the first, when they come together in Acts 15 with the rest of the apostles. Acts 15 just to make the assurance what they're saying, and they're going to say, what we're going to do with all these people coming. There's going to be too many things to fulfill. They need an order, because Elohim, the Almighty, is Elohim of order. And they end up saying, therefore, our sentence is to not trouble them with so many mitzvot at the same time, giving them for the moment. Which from the Gentiles are turning to Elohim. I'm reading it now. Acts 15, 19-21. Acts 15, 19-21. But that we write to them, that we actually tell them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, idolatry. Again, the first thing that he's putting down, idolatry. People cannot even do the first one. And from fornication, from things strangled, from blood. That means all the Levitical dietary. Because Moshe from old time had in every city that preach him. Moshe have in every city somebody to preach him? I have to look at that. I mean, haven't you take a look at that? Moses have in every city people who preach him. Why would have people who preach him? And it's given to the Gentiles something like that. Apostles? Really? Why? What do you think about it? I lost my notes. I lost my notes in here. I have a note about that. Yes, I lost my notes. I'm sorry. Preaching Moses in every city. So the confirmation of the holy presence to the people of Israel, the Gentiles coming to the faith, is that the new covenant confirmed in Jeremiah 31:31? It says, so what happens to the discussion that we says that sees in Acts 15:19, by which I judge there Jacob and all covers speaking the person in charge of Jerusalem congregation. I judge that the Gentiles who cover to Elohim are not disturbed, but they have written that they turn away from contamination of idols, from fornication, from drawing on blood. Anyway, go a little bit more. From ancient times, in every city who preaches and synagogues, there is reading every Shabbat to Moses. What makes us think that those who came to Gentile origin should not be hindered? Because obviously fulfilling Torah in this time, from one day to another, it was almost impossible, right? Which was here the demand from Judaizers. They wanted every single thing was written down on Torah. But they were forgiven about what prophetically time understanding what the purpose of the fathers were being for the nations. It was something that was impossible to fulfill Torah just in one day, and not to pull obstacles. That was a very heavy, and those believers still fell out in it. It says, let them start with those four things: no idolatries, no removing pictures and everything that you have figures and stuff, sexual sins, get away with fornication, adultery, and practices eating animals that are not with blood inside. And besides, obviously, these laws of blood in the Hebrew points understanding of Leviticus 11, right? So when we know animals can be eaten or not, it's already can read down in Leviticus 11, and the end of those chapters says, "Be holy because holy am I." And so another really perspective point or concordance for what is for the New Testament of Brit Hadashah. So it is not implicit that you could not eat an animal that is prohibited. It's obvious. It's just chalk it on blood, because Moses in ancient time has in each city. What does mean? That it means that in every Shabbat we're going to learn Torah. What was preaching Moses? What did Moses had? The Torah, the laws. Come on. They were learning Torah every day in every single Shabbat. There's a question, for example, that the people coming from the nations to the Vedians, to the biblical faith, are we come to Torah, to wisdom, and are we going to do we not be happy just with these four commandments? Or are we eager for more and living longer and wanting more? That question is for everyone. Do you who come from gentle origin and see these doors, do you want them to just stay that wide so easily done? Because that would be very unfair if Eternal makes no exception of people. Why would be giving all those commandments to Israel and not for us? So it's very positive to say, you know what, I want to learn more. Tell me more. I want to know more. I want to know the whole truth. I want to learn everything. I want to live entirely holy life, sanctify, consecrate myself. So that's for a part of this to the new covenant. The new covenant. And I have a couple more verses here. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, Jeremiah, but any covenant will make with you, house of Israel. So when we're talking about the covenant of the Father, when we're talking about the covenant that He has made with His people, when we talking about the prophetic understanding of what is His covenant, what are His laws, to everyone who thirsts to come to the water, and you have no money, come, buy and eat, come, buy wine, milk with honey and without cost. Why do you spend money for what is not bread, your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me and eat what is good, and delight yourself in abundance. Incline your ear to come to me. Listen, so what your soul may live. So that your soul may live. I will make everlasting covenant with you, the trustfully loyalty to David, to the loved one. A shadow to the beloved one. The Hebrew root of David name is the beloved one. So say the trustfully loyalty to David. Those ones who's being loyal to Yeshua, to his faith, as the Revelations say, those ones who keep the commandments of the Father and the faith of the Yeshua. So in context, we're seeing here Isaiah 55, 1-3, the compassion of the eternal in context. And we're seeing that he's taking there the everlasting covenant with you, with the loyalty of David in abundance, an everlasting covenant. So for further, it says in 55, you jump to 56, 1-8, this says, Adonai, preserve justice and do righteousness, for my salvation is about to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the one who does this, the Son of Man who does not hold it to keep from profaning Shabbat, and keeps his hand from doing any evil. Do not let son of foreigner who has joined himself to Adonai say, Adonai will surely exclude me from his people. Not let the Enoch say, that means people who are coming from a Gentile said, behold, I am dry tree. You know what? He will not look at me. For this says the Eternal, to the Enochs who keep my Shabbat taught, who choose what pleased me, and hold fast my covenant. To choose what pleased me and hold fast my covenant. I'll give them in my house, and that Mishkan, on that tabernacle that Yeshua left, that congregation that is in him, in his name, his authority, within my walls, a memorial and name better than the sons of daughters. Somewhere in Peter it says that we are real high priests and royal kings. I will give them an everlasting name that will not be cut off. Also foreigners who join themselves to Adonai to minister to him, to serve him. Says what is in there. What it says, also the foreigners who join themselves to Adonai to minister him, and to love the name of Adonai, and to be his servants, all who keep from profaning Shabbat, and hold fast my covenant. In context, the covenant. This I will bring to my holy mountain, and let them rejoice in my house of prayer. That one that they turned in the cave of thieves, then Yeshua left the true one, where the old praise comes to the real temple in heavens. Their burnt offerings, and sacrifice will be acceptable in my altar, and my house will be called house of prayer for all the nations, for all the peoples. Adonai Elohim, who gathers the dispersed of Israel, declares, I will gather still others to him, to those already gathered. Isaiah 56, 1-8. So if you see this, that you're having a covenant with him, to come to the obedience, to see all this biblical calendar, Shabbat, Pesach, Matzot, Bikurim, Shavuot, Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, 7 Day of Feast, Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, the Feast of the Weeks, the Day of Acclamation, Day of Atonement, and Tabernacles. And you see that are a shadow of something that he is pleased, that he keeps into his covenant. It's not something a way of what he's not covenant, his laws that we have not to keep. We're giving him into a covenant, we need to keep these things. Are things that please him, and also are shadows of things that are showing us Yeshua. So one of the last verses that I want to church here, we're gonna read it later. So these are the, if you've seen in the screen, I made a little calendar in there. It's based on the agricultural harvesting. All the calendar, the Hebrew calendar, is based on harvesting. So the three pilgrimage festivals, the 7 prophetic times. 3 pilgrimage festivals, 7 prophetic times. The three first ones, Passover, first fruits, unleavened bread for the first pilgrimage. The second pilgrimage is going to be Pentecost. The third, is going to be the then it's going to be trumpets, Day in Atonement, and booths or tabernacles, Sukkot, at the end of the 7th month of the year. And every single time you're going to see that these feasts and these holy convocations, these appointed times, these times of gathering, of these times of set apart times, are a shadow of the things that the Eternal did in the earth. The spring, the late rain, the early rain is in winter, when you can plow the land, when the land can be after their uh, seed to have some harvesting, and then the spring late rain, beginning of the dry season, where you can cut the barley and the flax, the wheat harvest, then later when the figs are ripened, and then it's gonna be the next harvest of the olive and the summer, and the summer figs come in almost for the end of the next season. See, that is sometime Yeshua said, see when the summer is coming close, the fig trees are greening again, but it will be no fruit again in there. Every single time is just based as a figure from what harvesting and this farming and plowing the land, seeding the land, and it's just a shadow of what we have to do in our lives. The fruits that we have to give to the Father in service, the fruits that we're giving to Him or we're producing in every single season. We're coming to Him closing, we're approaching to Him on service, we're coming with every single good fruit in our life. It doesn't mean that we have to plow the land outside and bring some fruits on trees and just come in and burn it. No, the real temple is inside of us, and the real fruits are justice and every single write down in Torah that it means to have to do with good deeds to our brothers, to ourselves, to our family, to the congregation. But you have to understand those things. So that's one part that I wanted to mention, just to start to be talking about the biblical faith of servants, and of course, more or less it will be that. Also, we have to understand that what this shadow that we're seeing here, what the service, what we celebrate, is just a dot. They are called a dot. It's a way to understand a different kind of commandment, which is a service to the Father. Okay, so pretty easy. Pesach, starting from Shabbat, which is every week. Pesach Matzot and unleavened bread, which is every year. Bikurim every year. Shavuot every year. Counting weeks for the Bikurim. Yom Teruah every year. Yom HaKippurim every year. Sukkot every year. A year calendar for biblical observance. Already. So we're starting with Shabbat. Shabbat will be the very first of service in Leviticus 23 that we're going to see. So it says, remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy. And he said, remember to keep it holy. It is given since Genesis. So Elohim blessed the 7th day and make it holy. What it makes us think that Yeshua abolished a day that the Eternal has made holy if this creation has passed. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall do your labor. That means weekly and all your work. But in the 7th day is Shabbat to the Eternal, your Elohim. Exodus 28:11. Shabbat means to cease, to stop, to stop. Okay? It doesn't mean to rest. It means to stop. Hold on. Hold your horses. It's a day for congregation to your Father. a day to meet with him. To his, we just mentioned in Isaiah, do not profane my Shabbat, my delightful day. Okay? And of course, Yeshua never abolished Shabbat. He's just reminding the Shabbat was made for man, not man for the Shabbat. Also talking about all those systematic laws that man has made instead of following the true service which is written down on Torah. All right. The following one, we're going to have Pesach. And we're going to have, and in this day shall be unto you a memorial. Pesach is a zikaron, Hebrew zikaron. What is a zikaron? A zikaron says a memorial. Same thing as your birth date. Same thing as your, of course, secular speaking. Don't misunderstand me, please. Secular speaking, a memorial for you will be your birth date. Even though you follow it by the Gregorian calendar, I try to do mine by the Hebrew calendar, of course. But Gregory, every single one has to follow their Gregorian calendar because we are set our mind into this system. But we're not doing what biblical Paul says, this renew your understanding. Transform yourself by renewing of your understanding. If you can renew your understanding, you're going to set your whole life more holiness, more close to the word of the Father. Sanctify yourself, as it says. So Pesach is a memorial. It's a zikaron. Something as anything that you need to memorialize, as a gathering, as a remembrance of something that you celebrate. Sorry. And you shall keep it is a feast to the Eternal. Please him. Through your generations you shall keep it. Is an ordinance, a hukah. Hukah is a different means of a commandment. An ordinance. See? My ordinance forever. It's a hukah. It's a commandment. It's a memorial. It means that that memorial, celebrated, do it that way as it's written down in Leviticus, is a ordinance to the Father. Not something that just goes away. All right. So in Exodus 12:24, you shall observe this rite. It says this is a rite. This is something that needs to be followed as he has established, as a statute or as a hukah, as we just read. For you and your sons forever you shall keep this service. It's a service to the Father. Leviticus 23:5. In the first month, on the 14th day, in the month of twilight is the eternal to Passover, between the afternoons, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., more or less. And is eternal, is the eternal Passover. It's not Jewish, it's not Israelite, it's for the eternal. Every single people has to do it, and this means today, every single one who comes to be a believer of the Messiah is the eternal Passover. On following, we have matzot, or unleavened bread. For you shall keep the feast of unleavened breads, as I commanded you. You shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. So on the 14th, on the afternoon of Pesach, they start the 15. Okay, so in Leviticus 23:4-8, and on the 15th day of the same month, the first month, Aviv, the feast of unleavened bread to the Eternal. Okay, and of course Saul said, let us celebrate this feast, let us celebrate the festival. What is he talking about? We're gonna see when we get there what is he talking about. In 1 Corinthians 5-8, if you want to go to your home, you want to do your homework ahead, go ahead, it will be nice. You can open your eyes little bit by little bit. So you shall keep the feast of unleavened bread as I commanded you. You shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. Why 7 days? Because it's the first congregation on the pilgrimage festivals as the appointed time. So the 7 days are the appointed time in the month of Aviv. Aviv means mature. Aviv means mature. It means what is something that you can ripe, that you can harvest. For in it you came out of Egypt. Something that we're going to learn between Pesach, Matzot, and Bikurim. Alrighty. The next one the next the next one we're going to have is Bikurim, the first fruits. The first fruits. When you enter in the land I'm going to give you, the land that I'm going to give you, and you reap its harvest, because every single land has fruits to give. I'm trying to talk a little bit more figuratively so people can understand what scripture is saying in there. When the Eternal gives us a land where we can bring fruits to him, to the service, bring it to the priest, to the high priest, a sheaf of the first grain of your harvest. And he is to wave the sheaf before the Eternal, so it will be accepted in behalf. The priest is to wave it on the day after the Shabbat. The day after Shabbat, regardless if that will be before or after. It mostly will be before the Pesach, so it could be inside the same feast, not after the feast. We'll see something how to analyze there, but it's just as easy as understanding. Is the day after the Shabbat. The Shabbat, the weekly Shabbat, not the Shabbatot. This is the first Pesach, which is Shabbatot, and the last day of unleavened bread, which is also a Shabbatot, a high Shabbat, which is saying in there. 1 Corinthians 15:20, but in the fact, Messiah has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have been fallen asleep. Something very interesting you're going to see is that it's a shadow of Mashiach fulfilled between Pesach, Matzot, and Bikurim. That is he fulfilled in there. But in here we have, of course, the first fruits in Mashiach. Pesach is the lamb that has been offered to the Father for the freedom of his people. So we come to be free to service to the Father in the desert. The 7 days of Matzot, it means 7 days of unleaven, on free of the yeast of the word. Yeshua said, be free of the yeast, be aware of free of yeast of Pharisees and Sadducees, means of religion, means of weird doctrines, idolatry. I have actually a little commentary about that in the same channel. Just check it. Be aware of free the yeast of Pharisees and Sadducees. So that would be min matzot. So Bikurim, he is the first fruits for those who have been raised from having fallen asleep. In Romans 11:16, we have something interesting to scrutinize and to look deep in. What is the dog? If the dog is offered as first fruits, is holy. The first dog is offered as first fruits is holy, so the whole lump and the root is holy. So are the branches. So are the branches. You see that it's talking of two different groups in there. So the first lump, the first fruits are holy, the whole lump, and the root is holy. So are the branches. It's talking about the tree, the root, so the branches, the ones who are injected. Every single tree has to be holy, not just one part of it. The next one will be Shavuot. And you shall count deep understanding into this, because a lot of this feast has been corrupted, especially by the Judaizing and the Rabbinism Talmudic teachings. And so from the morning after the Shabbat, the day after the Shabbat is the first day. Well, we know today is Sunday. After the Shabbat, from the morning after the Shabbat, from the morning until Shabbat, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the weight offering, that day, which day you offered the sheaf offering on Bikurim. 7 Shabbats shall be complete. 49 days. 49 days. Leviticus 23:15. So it says in 16. So in the morning after the 7th Shabbat, you shall number the day 50. Do not count till 50. Count the 50th day. because it's giving you to count 7 weeks of 7, which is more biblically. They don't say count until 50. You won't get nothing counting until 50. There it is. So in the morning after the 7th Shabbat, you shall number the day 50. The 50 day 49, 7 per 7, 49. Okay? And what we get in there, prophetically is giving something to them, Pentecost, and so on, in other words, which is Shavuot, Pentecost. In Acts 1:5, John baptized with water, but you will be purified. You will be purified, clean, or be with the holy presence for many days from now. So we're going to be understanding that the holy presence on Shavuot is the fulfillment of all the promises that he gave to the prophets in there of his presence coming back to the land. Okay? And he coming back to Yom Teruah, or the day of acclamation, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, in the first day of the month, very important, you shall have a Shabbat, a holy convocation. Shabbat, a holy convocation, a appointed time, a special time, a memorial, Zikaron. This one is a Zikaron. Okay, a memorial. He's not saying something in special. He says it's a memorial of blowing trumpets, a holy convocation, which is day acclamation. Teruah means acclamation of blowing trumpets. Of course, a shadow of something that Yeshua still need to come to do, as is written down in 1 Corinthians 15:22, in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, and the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound. For the last trumpet, the trumpet will sound. We understand a lot of things that it has to be into the shofar, which is a beautiful instrument given by the Eternal to the people of Israel to gather, to be prepared, to call for acclamation for holy convocation. Okay? Every single time that the people of Israel wanted to gather, it was sound the shofar, the trumpet, so they will come to gather, gathering the convocation, gathering the people. Matthew 24, 34, 44, 36 to 44. But in the day and the hour no man knows, no, not the angels of the heaven, no Elohim, but the Father only. Only Elohim will know the time. So something also we're going to have to understand in there, and just coming into perspective, that's something that we need to understand. The times are only managed and known by the Father. He is the one who has the whole potency to understand how time will managed and prophetically as understood on this earth. So times are being managed, as we saw in the beginning, by the moon, by observance of the moon. Okay, something that we're going to see in the next chapter, how we understand the times. Something that we're going to see in the next is how Elohim, how the Eternal managed the time, or the signals to be understood. Okay, this next one will be Yom Kippur, Day of the Atonement. Day of Atonement. So this is what the letter of the Hebrews are written down for. Now on the 10th day, the 10th day of the 7th month, the day of atonement, it shall be for you a time of a holy convocation, a Shabbat, again, a time of a special gathering, and you shall afflict yourselves and present a food offering to the Eternal, a good fruit, a good service to the Father, and you shall not do any work. Like I said, it's a Shabbat, no work for you, for your family, for anybody around your family who has in the faith, on that very day. On that very day, for it's a day of atonement. Okay, it's not a day for crying. It's not a day for to be hitting yourself with something in your back. No, we are remembering as Yeshua came back to us as a redemption and just waiting for him. He said, lift up your heads, your day is coming. So to make atonement for before the Eternal your Elohim, for whoever is not afflicted on that very day shall be cut off from his people. The Day of Atonement was the people of Israel waiting outside of the temple, where the high priest came out to understand that people would be forgive for the sins that he could not sin, and so that it would be coverture for the sins for every single one on the congregation. We're waiting for Mashiach to come out from the high temple, for the real temple, for with the real coverings of redemption for the whole Adamim, for the whole people. All right, Hebrews 10:29. How much more severely do you think someone deserves to be punished who has trampled the Son of Elohim underfoot, who has treated us an holy thing, the blood of the covenant? We're going to point at that into Hebrews, the blood of the covenant that sanctifies them, and who has instituted the Ruach of favor. There's a lot of things that we have to talk about Yom Kippur that's been really, really wrong understood into the religious group. And of course, that is not even really talked down into the Judaism or some Messianic groups about this. Last but not least, we have Sukkot, or tents of booths. This has quite some names. Live in temporary shelters for 7 days. We're living in temporary shelters because our real building, like says in the we have a real house in the Father in the heavens. So we're living in temporary shelters for 7 days. The whole time we're living in this earth, we're gonna be servicing Him. All native-born Israelites were to live in such shelters. Do you descendants will know that I had the Israelites live in temporary shelters when I brought them out of Egypt. Okay, I am the eternal Elohim. So He brings us out of Egypt and He leaves us to make a live in the desert, onto His light, to follow His light, onto His shadow, to follow His cloud, which is Yeshua. So Leviticus 23:34, for the 15th day on the 7th month. Again, the specifics of time, very important. The 15th day of the 7th month shall be Feast of the Tabernacles. For 7 days into the eternal. For 7 days to the eternal. Celebrate it for 7 days, a whole week, okay? And the first one will be Sukkot, will be Shabbatot, same thing in the 8th day, plus an 8th of convocation, which is part of Sukkot. We're going to talk about that, which is called Shmini Atzeret. It's part of Sukkot. It's not something apart. People has took it apart because they follow the rabbinic traditions. It's not biblical. It's not biblical, like I said before. Judaism always follow the traditional rites, customs, takanot, laws made of men, not Torah. Torah is holy, as Shaul has said. So 2 Corinthians 5:1, for we know that our earthly house and this tabernacle were dissolved. We are a building of Elohim, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens, the one that Yeshua promised to us, the one that Yeshua promised to us. You believe in Him, believe also in me. I'm going to prepare you a place. So where I am, you will be. It's not this earth. New heavens and new earth, as Peter says. All right. So for closing this, if some people might still wondering, well, you know what will be only for the Jews, the holy festivities? What Catholicism says and excuses, the festivities are used for Jews only. Most, and I say Catholicism, but includes the whole Christendom. And they take these verses, John 5:1, after these things where was the feast of the Jews. The Jews, very despotic in there. And Yeshua went up to Jerusalem. John 6:4, and the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was near again. And John 7:2, the feast of the Jews was that of tabernacles was near. Some verses we need to understand that cultural talking Jews were strictly from the people after the exile until today pretty much is still calling on context the people as Jews. Even from today, this is not just, this doesn't exist such a thing. And even after Yeshua, Paul mentioned, we studied before who is a real Jew in the series of, the last chapter of the series of usurpers, who is a real Jew, and we know there is no such a thing today. It is only nations coming to the body of the Yeshua, and that will be the real service today, the real follower. That's it. Counted. But you keep doing that, then well, okay, there's nothing you can change their minds to them. It's gonna be like them. Why we keep thinking like that? Exodus 23:12, 6 days you will work, and in the seventh day you will be at rest, Shabbat, that your ox or your donkey may rest, take a nap, and take refreshment, the son of their servant, and the foreigner, and the foreigner, too, is for them too, not just for the Jews. It wasn't you, but you're part of the congregation, you do go there. Okay? And he came to announce the good news, the gospel, for peace, for shalom, into who were far away. The shalom that Yeshua came into, given to us, coming back to the fire, coming close with the new covenant, is being in obedience. Same thing that the people of Israel is not different at all. The same covenant. What's the difference? The blood. What's the difference? The Torah are written down in our heart, in our mind. We don't forget about it. That's why we don't need a tzitziot. It's always with the Ruach, reminding us every single time. It never goes away. As far as we've been obedient and holy. So, shalom to you who were far away, Gentiles, and those who were near Israel, or the remnant of Israel that came into the Yeshua. Because through him, Yeshua, and one and another we have entry by the same Ruach to the Father. It's not that they are treated special and we're treated different, that we're on a grace and Israel until the Father will decide what to do with that people. No. We're all seen through the flesh, through the body of Yeshua. We have no other cover. We have no other korban than Yeshua. Is that to him and only to him. I am the way, the truth of the life. No one goes to the Father but through me. So you are no longer foreigners. You are no longer foreigners. So you are no longer foreigners or upstairs, but fellow citizens of the saints. Come on. But fellow citizens of the saints and members of Elohim's family. The same ones that the Israel did, the same ones we gotta do. Understanding what is and what is not on Torah, because some of those have to be by the Mishkan. Of course, the things that we are not gonna be do because it's not Mishkan, but the Mishkan is in heaven, so they have to be spiritually understood. But fellow citizens of the saints and members of Elohim's family, built on the foundation of the apostles, prophets, being the main stone of Yeshua angle itself. Ephesians 2:17-20. As we started in the beginning, that he is the cornerstone of every single faith founded in biblical speaking, thinking, acting, doing. Every single thing is through what Yeshua speak, and it concerns to Torah. Yes, it needs to be concerned to Torah because it's the truth. Your word is the truth. Then Peter began to speak, and realized how true is that Eternal does not show favoritism. We're repeating what is an act, but accepts men from every nation. From every nation. But who? Who will be accepting that? Who fear him and do what is right. It doesn't say who fear him and do just what you want. Who fear him and do what just the pastor of the Church of the Divine Son says. No. It says who fear him and do what is right. And doing what is right is what Scripture says. Not what the prophet Pajaritos, the prophet Little Bird says. And that's about the blankets, spirit blanket vision. It's not talking about food either. So you can eat whatever you want. It's a vision. It's not literal. Understand that. Please have some understanding. It's not literal. It's a vision and he's having on trance. It means something. Something that happens with Daniel. Something happens with Joseph. Something happens with Ezekiel. Something happens with Isaiah. Why are you talking about biblical faith and you're not understanding what a vision is? Please get some consensus in your thoughts and see what is in here. But accepts men from every nation who fear him and do what's right. But we're gonna see what happens. You say, okay, they never keep the feast. They never did it after Yeshua apostolic time in Acts 2:1. When the 50th of the weeks came, the Pentecost, they were all unanimous together. What they were doing together in a day like that? Of course, celebrating Shavuot, Pentecost. Jews from all the nations came, isn't there? Jews came from all the nations, including apostles and other disciples and proselytes. From all the nations came in that time to celebrate Pentecost, including the apostles. It means that if they were celebrating Shavuot, they were celebrating, of course, Bikurim. They were celebrating, of course, unleavened bread, because to get it in there, you start need to counting from Pesach. Acts 26. And we, after the days of unleavened bread, sailed from Philippi, and in 5 days we met them in Troas, where we stayed 7 days, and they were celebrated in diaspora. In diaspora. Something that the people in Israel, when they came out of Egypt, the first service they did it in the desert. They will build up the Mishkan, and then the presence will be in the middle of the people for the service. In Acts 20:16, and Paul had set up a pass through Ephesus. Let's he stop in Asia, for he was hastening to be in a day of Pentecost, if possible. If possible, of course, it doesn't have to be whatever you got it. Whenever you are, you will be there. If possible, in Jerusalem, in the diaspora celebrating. Again, 1 Corinthians 5:7-8. Therefore, cleanse off the sin of the old yeast, and that's understanding unleavened bread, that you may be a new dot, a new bread, without yeast, without religiosity, because our Passover, which is Mashiach, has already been offered by us. So let us celebrate the feast. The feast of unleavened bread involves every single thing, since Pesach to Bikurim, and the 7 days of unleavened bread. Not with the yeast of malice and evil, not evil and malice, but with unleavened breads, honesty and truth. Mystery of the Spirit, of festivities in the spirit of the commandment. Just to specify. I think the last one is Colossians. I might be wrong. Maybe it's Corinthians too. For I do not want you passing by now, for I hope to be in you for you sometime, if the Lord will allow it. But I will be in Ephesus until Pentecost again, in the diaspora celebrating. So we will be in Pentecost to gather with the people, to get together with the brothers. Maybe some more. Okay, well, maybe some more. By a curiosity did not find arguing with anyone at the temple, or stirring in a crowd in the synagogues, or anywhere else in the city. And they cannot prove to you the charges that they are not making against me. However, I admit that I served the Elohim of our fathers as a follower of the way, which they call a sect. I believe everything that agrees with the law, and that is written in the prophets. And I have the same hope in Elohim as these men, that there will be a resurrection in both the righteous and wicked. So I strive always to keep my conscience clear before Elohim and men. Wow, how powerful is this? I believe everything that agrees with the law, and I believe there will be a resurrection of righteous and weak. So in order to believe There will be a resurrection of righteous and weak. He agrees with prophets and Torah, so his conscience clear before Elohim and men. At the day of resurrection, he will be blameless. He is the patience of the saints. They are in the kept the commandments of Elohim and the faith of Yeshua. Revelations 14:12. Just on concordance, so you can actually make your heads together. In Acts 27:9, much time has been lost and sailing had already become dangerous because by now it was after the fast. The fast refers to the Day of Atonement. There is no other day specified on Torah that speaks about a fast and atonement. Atonement Day actually by culture in Israel meant that Atonement Day. The feast occurred in the fall and it was the only biblical festival involved fasting. One more time. And I said, it's everyday celebrations in Exodus 3:7, and Aaron will burn aromatic incense upon him every morning, every day. It was coming together to the Father. So people say it doesn't matter the time. You know what? It doesn't matter the time. You do it every single day. You have to do it too. And we understand the aromatic incense is written down in Revelations are the prayers of the holy people. Every morning when you put out the lamps away and will burn it. Exodus 38. And when Aaron lights the lamps at the dusk, he shall burn incense, perpetual right before the eternal on your generations. That means the daily praying, the daily coming to the Father. All right, weekly, of course, we got a weekly gathering with the Father in Exodus 28. Remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy, to keep it holy, to not profanate it. And we saw it as a covenant and Isaiah given to the people. Come on, monthly. This is Chronicles 23:31, and after all the burn of the offerings and the eternal on the Sabbath day, the new moons, a solemn feast, according to their number and according to their right continuously. The monthly is not a convocation, a holy convocation, but is given that as a solemn feast, talking about the Leviticus 23. The whole Leviticus 23 is solemn feast. It's not a holy convocation every single month, but it's a time of gathering or coming to the eternal remembering of a new cycle commencing, the Rosh Chodesh of every month. An annual Rosh Hashanah, in Exodus 23:14, 3 times you shall keep a feast to me in the year. And that's talking about the 3 ones that we talk in the 3 pilgrimage festivals, which Passover, first fruits, unleavened bread, 1, Pentecost, the second one, third one is Trumpets Day of Atonement, and Booths, of course. So every 6 years, it was also a gathering to the people of Israel. And every 6 years you will sow your land, and 6 years you will prune your vineyard and gather its fruits. But in the 7th year the earth shall rest of the Lord, and you will now sow your land, will you prune your vineyard. So that was given because the people of Israel was condemned a land to they have to work with, they have to take care with, but of course they did not. So of course the Eternal punished them and give them to the exiles who can arrest the land. After Yeshua came, he gave us another kind of land because we have to another place before the tabernacle, which is our body, right? So we can give our fruits every single time as we want. And Leviticus every 25:10, we see every 50 years or every yom, no, that every, sorry, every, I forgot the word. So, and ye shall sanctify every 50 year, proclaim a freedom to the earth and inhabitants. That year will be a jubilee, sorry, a jubilee to you, and you will each return to your possession, and each one will return to his family. This is a beautiful shadow of the jubilee, the last jubilee, or the jubilee of jubilees, in other words, where it says some religious groups, the real jubilee, where all the people will proclaim the freedom of this year and its inhabitants. More or less, that will be the time that we're going to be talking. But the festivities are from the eternal for those who call to be saints. Leviticus 23, 1 and 2, the Eternal spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and saying to them, the solemn feast of the Eternal. They're not Jewish. Those feasts are His, for His people who want to come close to Him. He said appointed times. He said holy convocations for people who want to gather Him, to show Him the way, to show you the way, to show you the real shadow, which is Yeshua. We have here in this creation shadows of the real thing to come, the real creation to come, a new heavens and new earth. So these are shadows and a way to follow. We understanding the redemption, which has attached the service that Yeshua is completing into his service to the Father. This just as a real short entrance of what we're going to see further time into the festivities of the Eternal, or the appointed times of the Eternal, or the holy convocations. Not be more much or less. Any questions, please just write at me. Don't forget to like the channel, share if you want, and shalom.